Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Nudist RV Park HOA Tried to Kick Out a Disabled Man for Not Being Naked and Beautiful Enough. I have always lived a relatively good life. I am one of those people who has just been lucky and fortunate while also having a strong work ethic and motivation. When I was young, I started a tire recycling company that took off and made me a millionaire. When I got to be in my 60s, I decided that I wanted to sell the business and do more with my life. Specifically, I wanted to help others. That is exactly what I ended up doing. I sold my tire recycling business to a corporation that will keep it going, and I will live comfortably for the rest of my life. With my extra spare time in retirement, my wife started taking us to a program our church does once a month, where we get together to bring food, clothes and other necessary items to people who need it. That is where I met a young man that would change my life forever. His name was Levi, or Levi, I'm not sure, and he was only in his early 30s but suffered from multiple health conditions that had him wheelchair bound and requiring assistance. Levi and I hit it off one day while we were chatting about books. We are both avid readers of science fiction and had several of the same favorite authors and novels. He even told me that he was writing a novel that was inspired by his life's struggles. I was absolutely impressed by his courage and story, and I knew that I wanted to get to know him more. My wife Alice and I continued to work with this church program, and Levi and I became pretty close friends. It was close to Christmas and I told Alice that I wanted to buy Levi a mobile home. I had been looking at several that were handicap friendly, and I knew of a place that he could live in. The one catch was that it was a nudist RV park. Normally, I would not think this was an option, but one of my friends had a family member that lived in a nudist RV park and they love it. Plus, it is extremely affordable. I spent $30,000 on a beautiful and practical mobile home for Levi. Many people have judged me for this and think that I'm only doing it because I want the praise, but really, I just want to see him happy. He deserves way more than what he has ever received in his life. Levi was so humbled by this that he cried and barely was able to accept that it was a gift. He wanted to pay me for it, but I continued to insist that it was already in his name. We immediately got to work on having it sent to its new home in the nudist village. Levi was not sure what to think about that part of the situation, but said that it would probably make things easier since getting dressed can be such a difficult chore some days. I had purchased the lot where the mobile home will stay, technically making me the landlord, but all of the money will still go to the park. I really did that just so I could ensure that everything gets paid for. If he gets in a bind, I will know and pay for the monthly rent. It's not very expensive, so I did not mind at all. Things seemed to be going great. Levi had made friends, was paying his bills on time and really just enjoying his independence for once. He had fully embraced the nudist lifestyle and was also pleased with this new change. It was a few months later that Levi received a letter in the mail saying that the HOA had decided not to renew his biannual lease. Apparently in this park, they decide twice a year if you are a resident they want in the neighborhood or not. This was news to me. I was absolutely pissed and Levi was in shock. He had no idea what reasons they would have to want to kick him out. He had always paid his rent early and had followed all of their rules. I contacted the HOA board and started digging right away into what was going on. The first woman I spoke to seemed to have a snobby tone of voice, saying that Levi was not a good resident and that they were within their rights to evict him for reasons. As his landlord, I requested a documented list of reasons and she said that she would have to work on that. A week passed and Levi received another letter saying that he would need to relocate in 30 days. No explanation at all. I called again and demanded that I spoke to someone who knew what was going on. From there, I only received BS. So I started calling them out. I told them that they couldn't evict this man because he was handicapped or not attractive enough for their nudist park, and they immediately started saying that there were other reasons and began saying stuff like, he had ladies of the night over or left his dog outside once on accident. Actual garbage reasons. It became very clear to me that they had no actual reasons for wanting to evict my friend, Levy. He had already dealt with enough crap in his life, and these people wanted to kick him out because he was not some beautiful nudist. My friend, who had a family member in the neighborhood, did confirm that she had seen them evict others who were arguably less attractive for bizarre reasons. I decided that I would not accept this type of treatment for my friend. He did not deserve it. I pulled out the big guns and looked into information on the Americans with Disabilities Act and found out what actual legal jurisdictions these people had. Turns out that unless they had proof of these reasons for evicting him, they had no legal leg to stand on. It really just appears as if they are kicking him out because he is disabled. The board held a meeting at my request so that we could discuss Levy's case with their neighborhood. I let them hand me their paperwork on the incidents that were why they wanted to evict him. It was obvious to me, someone who was not even a lawyer, that these were not done on the day that they say they were. The handwriting is the same person and the dates don't match with when they originally said these situations occurred. It all just seemed staged. They kept saying that they did not want to evict him because he was disabled, yada yada yada, but I could tell they were trying to cover their asses. So I threw the ADA book at them. I was quick to tell them that I had talked to lawyers. I really hadn't, but they didn't know that. It did not take much time of using some fancy terminology and my businessman attitude before I had them all shaking in their little nudist boots. At the end of the meeting, Levy was allowed to stay and I told them that anytime there is a problem that I want to know about it that day. I'm not giving them a chance to screw him over with false accusations again. All of the good people in the neighborhood were pleased that Levy got to stay. He had become a popular guy and many of them are encouraging and look out for him. I am thankful that I could find such a welcoming community for such a wonderful person to live. It has been over a year since this has happened and I still enjoy seeing my friend and spending time with him every day, even when he is naked on the front porch at the nudist RV park. I have continued to do work with the same church community program, even bringing Levy with me to help and inspire others who have similar physical struggles like him. He is a beautiful person who deserves beautiful things and happiness, and a warm place to live is one of them. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this was a pretty bizarre story, but thankfully with a very happy ending. And by the way, yes, I can assure you, this is actually a true story. I did not make this up or something. Sometimes real life just writes the most interesting stories. And the next one is titled, I Got Revenge with an Army. Back in the early 90s, my friend, I will call him Lou because that is his name, was selling his RX-7 via an ad in the old print Auto Trader. It came out every Thursday, so that first weekend was critical for sales. The very first guy that came to see it on Saturday said he wanted to buy after driving it. Of course, he had to finance, so they could not finish the sale during the weekend. Lou was worried about losing all the bites from the new ad, so he asked for a deposit of $500. The guy wrote a check. Lou told the rest of the callers that weekend that it was sold and, unfortunately, did not ask for their numbers in case it fell through. This story predates caller ID availability in my area by a couple of years, so those leads were gone. As you surely expect by now, the guy flakes on Monday and Lou deposits the check. Payment stopped, big surprise. Sitting around my apartment, we schemed revenge, but all we had to go on was the check. Lucky for karma, there was a phone number printed on it. Our first idea was to write a little program to dial his number repeatedly from my modem, but that would be easily stopped and probably gets us in direct trouble. Then Lou got a page from his work. This was back in the one-way pager days. You can call the pager's dedicated phone number, it sounds a tone, then you punch digits for the number you want to be sent to the pager. The person with the pager receives the number you entered and, presumably, calls it. Everyone with a pager made sure that people who needed to get a hold of them had the number for their pager. You would see pager numbers in print and TV ads all the time for various services. Boom, angelic choir sings. Heavenly light goes off. Lou's pager number and my pager number had the same prefix, middle 3 digits. So, what if we randomly dial numbers with that prefix and page them all to this guy's number? So we order a pizza, open some beers and start looking through the yellow pages at locksmith and tow truck services to find more pager prefixes. We wind up with a dozen or so. After that, it is half an hour of coding in your old Borland C++. I put together a program that would cycle through our list of known prefixes and add a random final 4 digits to get a random pager. It calls the pager's number, pauses and then dials this a-hole's number and throws a *911 suffix on there for good measure, which is something people with pagers understood to indicate an emergency of some kind. The whole thing was just generating a random string where XXX is the pager prefix and YYYY is random. Commas make pauses since you need to connect to the paging service before you can enter the message. Make string, send to modem, wait for no carrier, hang up, repeat. We start eating the pizza and let it fly. I was very picky about my devices, so my modem was a US robotics courier. You could set an S register to control how long it would sound each tone when dialing. Uber nerds like myself would keep tinkering with that to get it as fast as possible while still being recognized by the phone service. It was very fast. I swear it could run through 4 pages per minute, so this guy would get 240 calls per hour. We just watched it run and laughed our asses off. We realized pretty early on that we did not really know if it was working, so we wandered down to the 7-Eleven and called him from a payphone just in case he could somehow trace it or the popo were on the case and watching. A man answered and I said, "Hello, I got a page at this number." I heard an audible and then he just hung up. Gold. We ended up running it for a few hours and then let it go quiet for a few days. Then we scheduled it to start dialing in the middle of the night every few days, plus we would fire it up by hand randomly whenever we had a party. We checked again from the 7 to 11 after a week and it went to an answering machine, which did the rapid tone at the end of the greeting to indicate the tape was full. We reasoned that the line was still ringing anyway, so we kept it at it for another month or so. Eventually, we got the disconnected warning when we made one of our regular checkups. I'm sure he just changed the number. I like to think about that guy answering the phone after a few days of silence when we started it up. I can vividly imagine his response at the "Did someone page me to this number?" as he slams the phone down and then it rings again a few seconds later. Or, of course, coming home from work and having an answering machine full of random people asking about being paged. And yeah, we annoyed several thousand people into calling this guy by the end, but each of those people was only put out for a single call. A cost? Yes, but a necessary one for justice. The next one is titled "Don't Steal." So this was not me, but it happened at one of the retail cell phone stores I managed a few hours ago. We put out demo phones for customers to play with. The funny thing about these phones is that they are locked, cannot be used and have no real value. From time to time, a dumb thief will come in the stores and take one of these phones. Today was one of those times. This particular store is usually slow, so having 1 or 2 employees working at a time is normal. Today one was at lunch, so only 1 employee was in the store. In walks 2 guys. One is engaging with the employee, asking questions, acting like an interested buyer. The second is looking at the demo phones, but in reality is taking it off the security stand. The employee notices the guy has removed the demo phone from the security device and turns to look at him. The thief makes a run towards the door and unbelievably, the employee tackles the thief. The 2 roll around exchanging blows outside the store. It was a completely crazy scene. The good part about all this is that the thief got away with the phone, but in the process of wrestling with the employee, dropped his car keys out of his pocket. The employee picked up the car keys and went inside the store, locked the door and called the police. To keep a long story short, the cops came and towed the thief's 2016 Honda Accord. So he got a playphone that is as good as worthless and lost a good car. Also, the cops were easily able to identify the thief and put a warrant out for his arrest. The next one is titled "I Warned You." This all happened when I was a young man around 21 years old. I was sharing a flat with another young bloke in a Perth suburb. And guys, Perth is obviously in Australia, but I don't think I need to mention that. I had not long had my first car, an old 1972 beat up old Ford Falcon. You know, base model, slightly rusted, air-conditioned floor, etc. I'm 50 now, so quite a long time ago, I loved my old Ford. It was roomy, comfortable and reliable. As a part of the large block of flats we lived in, each flat was given 2 parking spaces, 1 undercover and 1 open. My spot, clearly numbered with a 2 in a large white paint digit, was the open space. All was well for a few months. I was getting along really well with my flatmate and we got along with our other neighbors. Enter entitled person. He drove a fairly new BMW, nice and flash. While I was at work, he took it upon himself to allow himself to steal my spot. In Australia, the Ford Falcon was one of the largest cars on the road and parking it was difficult. It would be classed as a mid-sized in the USA. I get home and my spot is occupied. Damn. Off I go to find someone else's spot to borrow for the night. I ask Unit 1 as I know they don't have a car and they were quite accommodating to me. Still, I go inside and write a note for the owner of the BMW and neatly place it under his windscreen wiper, hoping that a polite request would do the trick. But guess what? Nope. Next day, same thing. Now I'm getting a little irritated. I repeated the previous night's efforts but made the note bigger and a tad ruder. I know he got the message because the bits of paper were gone. Day 3, same again. It is the weekend. Unit 1 could not lend me their spot as they had visitors. Okay, fair enough. I park my big old Falcon across the front of the BMW, blocking it in. I was not going anywhere that weekend. Next morning, BMW was gone. Somehow it managed to slip the coup. I steal my spot back again. That evening the BMW did to me what I did to him, blocking me in. I see red. Upset me is not nice me. I am patient, I bide my time. Monday morning he is gone and I go to work. Monday evening, yep, you guessed it, spot taken again. Fair dinkum, does this guy think he owns the spot? Revenge mode. New note on a sheet of A4 paper written on his windscreen with big black text, the kind that goes through the page. Full sheet is stuck to his windscreen with that horrible masking tape that always leaves something behind when it is peeled off. Next day, note gone and BMW still in my spot. Okay. Same again with the note, rude to the extreme, kindly explaining to the BMW why in the 7 dark levels of age he shouldn't park in someone else's spot, maybe even referring to his dubious parentage. I then get out the big gun, my silicone gel. I use the entire tube, plastering every last square millimeter of the page and stuck it to his windscreen, right in front of where his eyes would look through at the road. Try ignoring that. When I go to leave for work the next morning, the BMW is gone, nowhere to be seen. I saw it further down the car park a couple of days later with a brand new windscreen. Needless to say, he parked in my spot again. In fact, neither did anyone else, ever. Edit, I figured out paragraphing. Another edit, to all you readers who are wondering why I just didn't get him towed, here's why. Think about it, I was young and naive at the time and did not even think about towage. Now, different story, then I just wanted him to go away and leave me alone. I was not even aware at the time that I could, so horses for courses. The time was the early 90s by the way, I was in my early 20s, skinny and not particularly strong and with no idea on how to fight. I only had my intellect. The guy pissed me off. I did not know which unit he was in, never saw him at any time, nor did he approach me when it was obvious which unit I was in. I started off being polite and progressed gradually downwards from there, culminating in the final offense. Context? I got what I wanted. He was sorely inconvenienced and seriously embarrassed publicly for the entire large block of flats to see. Everybody would have passed him and the plastered note on his now unusable car. Plus, since nobody would help me, I had to help myself and of course warn them all not to mess with the weakling from flat number 2. Having him towed would have produced less humiliation, as he could have merely shrugged it off as a broken down car. It worked. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.